and I welcome you back to this channel. I want to say hi for those who are coming across this channel for the first time. Today I want to do a video that I had promised. I promised you to do a video on the books that I own on sewing. So I hope that these will be books that you can use also to help you in your sewing journey. And before we go into that, I just want to ask you to subscribe. If you are new, also consider subscribing if this content will be helpful to you. I'm going to be leaving all the links of these books into the description so you can check them out and see if this is something that will help you. So in a previous video that I did, I spoke about some of the things that I did when I started sewing, because at that time I really wasn't able to pay for fashion school or to do an apprenticeship or anything like that. So I was looking for ways in which I could learn how to sew and understand fashion and all those things. So one of the routes that I took was to look for books, and these are pre-owned books, but they were very helpful. So they're books that have actually seen some years behind them, but most of the techniques still remain useful, and you can still use them to just start off and even to act as your reference point. Most of these books I still use up to date. They're very helpful, but you can also look for newer versions, because I know they've published like updated versions of these books. But I'll be leaving the links in the description box. In case you want to check them out, you can do that, and I hope that it will help you. It will help you in your journey. So yeah, let's get started. So my first book that I owned, actually this was the only book that I owned at the time, and it's still very helpful to me, is a book that I bought from a lady that sells pre-owned books. She had mentioned that one of the universities here in Johannesburg was closing down, so they were kind of like getting rid of everything. So she bought this book, A Complete Guide to Sewing, and to me it has been the go-to book, and I used it a lot because it is very comprehensive, and it actually teaches you. I'll hold it up so that you can see it. The basics are very good for a beginner, even for people who are advanced in sewing. This is just something that is very helpful because it's very detailed, even though it's not like a recent publication. But if you go through the book, you'll see it takes you from the very basics, like how to take measurements, how do you take or what are the sewing tools that you'll be needing, and then it goes on to teach about several techniques that you can use, and it covers quite a whole range actually. So I was just putting on these tabs just to help me find the pages quickly, so that we really don't take time. So if you start just from the beginning, you'll see that they describe to you the sewing tools that you need. So it's a whole range. Apart from the sewing tools themselves, they'll teach you also like the parts of a machine, the very basic parts. Because like when I started sewing, I really didn't know anything. I didn't know how to operate a machine. I didn't know what were the parts, the essential parts of a sewing machine. I didn't know there were different types of needles that you need to sew on the machine. So this book actually has a comprehensive explanation, and it also comes with some diagrams or images that can help you understand. So what I would do actually when I was using this book, I would read something, and if I didn't understand, then I would go and look for like a tutorial online that was explaining that concept. So when I came back to the book, I obviously was able to understand it much better. Or I would do the other way around, where I'd go online, maybe check out a tutorial, several tutorials on a certain topic, and if I wasn't really getting it or I wasn't sure, then I would consult this book, and it really outlined it well. It does outline things well. So you can see, like here, it just gives you the parts of a machine. Of course, we have newer versions of machines now, but I mean, the basic components of a machine, you need to know what is a bobbin, where is the bobbin placement, or even how to thread those. They take you through you understanding the tension discs and all those, because you will need to understand how to operate a machine anyway, as if you are considering using a sewing machine for your for your sewing. It also has, you know, aspects of, you know, the blocks that you need. So these are basic blocks. For example, it talks about, it shows you a basic bodice, a basic skirt block, and what are the markings, what do they mean? Because sometimes it can be very intimidating when you see certain drawings, and especially if you're totally new to sewing, you don't know what are those symbols, what are those markings there, and how do you even derive such a pattern. So they go on to explain it in detail, and this is something that's very, very helpful, and it starts you from the very, very basics. So yeah, don't be don't be afraid to start from the beginning, because actually you build a more solid foundation that way than if you want to cut, you know, do shortcuts. Sometimes that shortcut will take you a longer way, because you discover as you go on, you will have to go back and try to understand something that you could have done at the beginning. So it's just very comprehensive. It takes you through the fibers. You will need to understand how certain fabrics are woven. For example, you need to know which patterns, you know, sometimes the client will bring you a pattern that cannot work with a certain fabric, for example, right? So you need to be able to understand these things. That way you're also better able to advise your clients, people that you know, your loved ones, and so on and so forth. So very, very helpful it's been. It also has, you know, sections where you can understand like darts. What is a dart? What are the different types of darts? How do you do an underlining for a garment that has got darts? Because some of the things might not be clear to you. So I was explaining in my previous video, because I started sewing when I didn't really have money. So I started off by understanding this concept. So by the time I was able to enroll into fashion school, these are things that I understood. For me, really, it was just like the practical part that I needed to get into, right? So this is something that will set you out on a good standing or good footing, okay, so that as you go along, you just build upon your knowledge base. So like on this page, it talks about the different kinds of necklines. So you've got different kinds, and yeah, you can now become creative and decide for like your garments, what collar, what neckline do you want to do. I have like a mandarin collar here. So these are things that you will be able to understand and explore. And once you've read the book, or you've come across something in the book, you can actually cross-check it with other sources, if they're DVDs, if they're other tutorials online, magazines and things like that. Or even if you are in fashion school, these are things that you can actually counter-check or just read on more, and then try to even do like a practical you know, a practice. Because like I always say, practice will what? Will make perfect, will make you perfect in whatever it is that you are doing. So it has different sections, clothing for men and children, and then towards the end it also has a section on upholstery, like, you know, sofa covers, curtains and things like that. It also gives you an idea of projects that you can do as a beginner. And yeah, very, very comprehensive. So this was the first book that I owned. I still hold it dear to myself. So yeah, I will be posting a link for you guys, and maybe you can check it out and let me know what you think. Very, very helpful. Or, you know, I hold this book as an asset to myself. Okay, so the second book that I'm sharing is this one, Clothing, Fashion, Fabrics and Construction. So this one actually has more of fashion and fashion concepts, and for example, what are the things that you should be looking out for if you're going to buy clothing, like the colors as well, just construction. It also has, I think, a section on the development of, and even the evolution of fabrics and sewing, and how, you know, fabrics were discovered, where, and how it has evolved over time, and a section on economics and yeah, things like that. And then after those chapters, I think the first 6, 7, 8 chapters is more on fashion concepts, okay, and then it goes now on to do, or to explain, or to teach now the basic aspects like in the previous one. So it takes you through how to take measurements, it takes you through the different parts of the machine, and then it takes you through other techniques that you need to learn, like how to thread your machine, some of the tools that you need. Okay, so you can see there's just some images about the tools, and of course it explains what each tool does, okay, and how you can use those. It talks about different things like how you can make calves, you know, when you're making a shirt. So the cufflinks, it can be on your shirt, it can be on your a coat, or anything that you are thinking of attaching calves, and how you can attach those, and what are the things that go in. You need to maybe to add interfacing, you need to add what you call like a stiffener, you know, so that it's not, because the curves and the collars will normally get a stiffener. So they go on to explain such techniques, such concepts, and it's also very, very detailed. It's very also simple, because sometimes things are explained in such a complicated manner that it becomes difficult for you to follow. So this is a book that was done by Jeanette Weber, and it's also not a very recent publication. Not sure if the edited versions of it, but you can look out for that. I'm also going to be leaving the link into the description box. So from that, I have this book, and this is actually particular to appliques, so it takes you through what you need to know if you're going to do an applique, like patchworks, embroidery, quilting as well. I'm not so much into that, but I like patchworks, so I do that, especially like on t-shirts. So this is something that really guided me, and it also, what I like about it is that it also comes with templates. So you don't have to, sometimes you run out of ideas. So this one comes with its own templates that you can trace out and just cut out on your fabric or on your patterns, and then you can go on to do your appliques. It also has, I think, an explanation or a section that talks about like lace, and you can see it has like visuals there that help you understand better or easier the concept that they're trying to explain. So creative appliques was quite helpful for me in terms of patchworks. There are other things there like embroidery and quilting. I'm not so much into that, but if this is your thing, maybe this is a book you'd like to check out. And I'm also going to be leaving a link of this book in the description box. And let me see what else I have. You know, in my other video, I was also trying to bring out one thing to say, if you're going to go into fashion designing and sewing, maybe you should consider the line that is going to be like your main line, and then you can sew these other things, because sometimes it becomes a little bit overwhelming if you're going to say, I'm going to sew, or I sew anything or everything. Okay, so if you are thinking about sewing for like children specifically, this is a book from the Singer brand, and I got this because all my machines are Singer. I don't know, I love this brand. I've not had issues with my machines, so I just decided to get it because I have small kids. I have 2 smaller kids and 1 older kid, so I just thought, let me check out what I can use maybe to be helpful for me when I think of making something for my little girl. And it was, because it also has the very basics where it takes you through how to take your measurements, so you can see. And some of these measurements, as you take them, you know, they could be standard, but I always tell people it's best you measure out a person, because sometimes this guesswork can be very taxing, you know, especially for a beginner. You want to take accurate measurements of your client or of yourself or whoever it is that you're making the clothing for. Okay, so it takes you through just like, you know, the notions. Here we have the zippers, you have the buttons, and you know, the parts of a garment, and you know, explains to you how you could read the book and understand. It also has a lot of projects that you can do for kids, even infants. If you want to make like these baby bassinets. I don't know if that's the right word, or just you know, the thingy where you pack certain items for the baby, like nappies or even toys, and how you can make decorative clothing for young children, bed sheets for the babies and all that. And just it's very colorful, so it also just gives you an eye open on what you can do or how you can play around with the colors, because I think little children also look very beautiful in bright colors. Okay, so you can see if you're going to do ribbing, like or ribbing for, you know, like at the edges where you have this stretchy material that kind of holds to maybe like a sweatshirt, or like a baby romper and something like that, and how you can attach those, then the different types that exist. So it's very, very handy. I found it useful, even though I really haven't made much. I was able to understand certain concepts about when sewing clothing for babies, especially young kids. And you can see this is something, I think, for the christening of a baby, and how you can go about achieving. You see the frills that come in baby's clothes. Yeah, so this explains it in detail. So probably if you're considering sewing for children, this is something that you should check out. I'll also be leaving the link to this in the description box. So another Singer brand book that I got was this sewing lingeries. Okay, I haven't really sewn anything undergarments related, but I got this book because I was thinking, when you think about nightgowns, you think about lingeries or any undergarments, most of the times you the fabrics or the materials that are used are very delicate. So you are dealing like with the sheer fabrics, you're dealing with the silk, you're dealing with lace and such. So it just takes you through how you can handle these kinds of fabrics, because they're very delicate. Okay, you cannot be sewing and then sewing or picking the seams. For example, if you're dealing with lace, it's going to leave holes most likely. So probably this is something you want to look at. It will just guide you through how you go about it, how do you treat lace, you know. So yeah, it will teach you one thing or two. But if you also want to take this line as one of your major lines that you're going to be concentrating into your business, probably something that you should look at. Or if you just want to understand these fabrics and how best you can handle them, maybe the needles that work. Remember, we have different kinds of needles for different kinds of fabric. This is explained very well in here, and a lot other aspects that are concerned with sewing undergarments. So this is another one that I will just go through and learn a few things, one or two. And yeah, my next book, this is mostly something that I used just to play around with colors. You know, sometimes you want to sew something and combine similar colors. Sometimes you want to contrast it and just do something radical, something very creative, something different, outstanding. So this book actually just takes you through how you can play around with colors and color combinations and contrast. And yeah, it's very helpful in that manner, because sometimes you might think these colors, I don't think they will work together, they would work well together rather, but you will actually find that it might work. Okay, so it gives you tips and just guides you which colors work also for different kinds of skin tones, the color of the eyes, and just how you can play around with those. What are the colors that are, you know, recommended for different seasons. Okay, so this is something that I used for that purpose. Okay, I'm also going to be leaving a link in the description box, and see what you can come up with, the colors that can blend. It also has, you know, that makeup colors that can go on with or that can go together with your clothing. So yeah, I use this just to understand more about color and play around with colors and how creative you can be. So this is a book by Christabel Buscher. I'll be sharing their link as well. And all these books I'm sharing with you are books that are not like recently published, but these are things that can help you, as I said earlier. So yeah, then last but not least, okay, so I have this book, The Fashion Magic, and this one also is a book that I use just for creativity. It actually goes more on your creative side, your creative sense, in a certain way. That you see, when you talk about closures, for example, so let's take buttons, right? We know that you use buttons to fasten a clothing, but in this book, you actually learn that apart from using them as fasteners or closures, you can actually use them as a decoration. They can have a decorative purpose to your garments, or just to add some, just some interesting aspect to what you're sewing, and not necessarily that you're going to use this as closures. They've used another example here of zippers. For example, you can use zippers as a decoration on your clothing. It gives it that kind of, to me, it gives me that sense of like a street look, or like a rough kind of outlook. So, but you can also use them. I've seen something like this, like you make a flower out of a zipper, then you attach it to like a bag or some clothing of some kind. So this book really just it's more like playing on your creative side, okay, and what you can use these things that you normally use for specific things like feathers. Sometimes you want to add some wow to your garment, so you can think about feathers and think of how you can actually play around with these items to just enhance your clothing, so that they're not boring or usual, or because sometimes you tend to think like in a mainstream kind of thinking, so it's like appealing to you to think out of the box. So for example, if you saw these items here, it's all these bling things, I don't know what to call them, or glitters or whatnot, how can you use them on your clothing? Okay, apart from the traditional way that you would use them, maybe you would use this to align in your seam, okay, but other than that, how else can you actually use this to just sass up your garment or your project? So this is what this book is about. Just, it's creative, it's fun. Actually, it's actually fun. It just brings back memories of my childhood, when I just play around with things, colors, and if I found something nice, looking nice, like or glittering stones, I would collect those and just play with those. So it just kind of touches to that side of my childhood. So I just thought, okay, I'll see what I can do. And so every time I'm out shopping for my sewing supplies, I'm always on the lookout when I look at certain items in the store, to say, apart from what is normally used for, how can I use it in a more creative way? So that kind of touches my creative side. So this is what this book is about, and I'm going to be leaving a link in the description box, and you can check all these books out. Okay, so here I have some patterns. This is a very, very, very old pattern, believe me. I think it's from the 1980s. And the lady that sold me, because I bought all these books from the same lady, but I bought them over time, okay, because I didn't also have the money to buy them at once. So I've been like collecting from her over a period of time, and so she gave me this pattern. I don't know that you can get this anyway, but I was just thinking maybe I could just tap on my creativity and see how I can transform some of these pieces from the 80s look. And yeah, so I haven't really done anything with it yet, or with these patterns, but I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, so this I didn't buy, she gave it to me as a token of appreciation for buying from her so many books. And I have a lot of other books that I continue collecting from her because I like reading. So if you really are not into reading, maybe this is not something that can work for you. I'm into reading, so it was really helpful, and it kept me going during the times that I didn't have money. This is another pattern that I bought. I haven't even opened it. I was just sharing with you guys in the other video, but it was together with a book, so yeah, that's why I'm showing it to you. So these are the books that I own. Some of the books, actually, I still have like a whole bunch, but I just thought I would share with you some of the things that I did or I used to help me grow in my sewing. And I'm still growing. I'm in a process of learning more and more. I don't think really you can say I've learned all there is to learn in the fashion industry. It will always evolve, and you must evolve with it if you want to survive, right? Okay, and I'm also not saying these are the books you should go and read, go look for them, go buy them. I'm just sharing to you to say be on the lookout, because these books also, the way they came to me, when I started sewing, I really didn't have this thing in mind to say I'm going to collect sewing books. This case, it's an opportunity that it presented itself when I was in this journey, and I just thought, why not? This is something that I can use to help me grow. So I hope that this has been helpful to you, and I would encourage you to be on the lookout. There's so many ways you can get books, because actually if you can get hold of soft copies, you can go for that, especially if you have a tight budget, because soft copies will be cheaper than buying the hard copy ones. But if you can buy them, go for them. You can check in your bookstores and places where they sell books. I'm sure you'll be able to get something on sewing. You can also go online and search for free PDF or free downloadable books. There's so many on sewing. There are even more recent published books. They're more, like advanced also, because it's been evolving since these books were published. So there are other options that you can look for. You can download apps for you to be able to get access to free books, soft copy books, of course. But where you can, if you can afford, you can buy the hard copies and just read them and consult them. To me, they are a reference point. I always go back to just clarify something, or like I said, if I've read something that is not clear, then I research more and I go online to see if I can find any tutorials or anyone who is explaining the concept more clearer to me. So yeah, so that's about my sewing books. I hope that you will also consider looking for other avenues that you can learn how to sew, apart from going to class and of course taking the free online classes and things like that. What other ways? You must be thinking, what other ways can you acquire knowledge? There's so many ways that you can acquire knowledge, okay? So this was my journey. It has been my journey, and I can tell you I really am happy that I took that opportunity when it presented itself. So look out for those opportunities. Don't let them pass you by, and believe me, you will not regret, okay? So thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you all the blessings, and please take care out there, and I'll see you on our next video. Please remember to subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. Click on the notification bell so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. So thank you everyone. Bye bye. I'll see you next time.